Hey, I'm Natasha Buldeo, and welcome to the first Wellbeing Wednesday. So I'm really excited about this project. It's something that I feel like I've been waiting for, or waiting to do for most of my life. And I've spent the last weeks deliberating about how I was going to launch this, how I was going to get it started. I've had an idea of wanting to do something like this for a number of years, but yeah, I didn't know how to get it done. And then I had this idea to do webinars, and I've been thinking about it. In fact, we spent the last 2 weeks creating videos, an amazing video, 20-minute video that we were going to use as in our launch video. And then I met a friend yesterday and told her about this project. I haven't seen her for over 10 years. Told her about Wellbeing Wednesday and about my video, and then she said to me, well, maybe, as your first webinar, you need to just talk, explain your vision, explain your passion, and explain to anybody who's viewing why you want to do this. So yes, here I am. Against the advice of my team, I'm not using the video, but instead I'm doing a live, and I'm going to use to explain why I started, or why the idea behind Wellbeing Wednesdays, as well as talk a little bit about what well-being is and what well-being means to me, and then we'll move on to sharing a little bit about how this came into being, and also what to expect in future webinars. So yeah, in terms of wanting to do this, I've been working in the well-being space for over 25 years now, and had this idea that I wanted to share information that I've been gathering for over 25 years, but really didn't know how to do it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about, start off with firstly a few questions that I've had Wellbeing Wednesday when I started talking about it. So I think that's a good start, by answering a few of the questions that I've got from friends and people who follow me on social media about Wellbeing Wednesday. The first question was, why are you doing this on a Wednesday? Isn't it inconvenient? Well, for most people, the week starts on Monday, and it's when we start planning and preparing, and it's all about schedules and getting things done. And come Friday, it's about relaxing, enjoying the weekend with family and friends. And in order for us to function well in both those areas, whether it's the work-driven strategies, goals, or plan for the week, or the enjoyment of the weekend, for us to do that well, we personally have to feel well. We need to feel well, and we need to have balance. And Wednesday is midweek, so I thought, well, isn't that a brilliant time to actually think about balance and well-being? So the aim of Wellbeing Wednesday is to do a 20-minute webinar that will stream live on Wednesday. We scheduled it at 10 to 10:20, which is tea time within the UK, and so basically 20 minutes on a Wednesday where we can talk about balance, feeling well. Now that leads me to what well-being is. What do we mean by well-being? So in most dictionaries, well-being is defined as a state of being content, healthy, and happy. Now, well-being is different from wellness. Wellness is more about health and a focus on a healthy lifestyle. And well-being incorporates wellness, it includes wellness, but also includes other areas. So for me, well-being is multifaceted. It's about taking into consideration balance in all aspects of life. So well-being is about fitness, it's about physical fitness as well as mental fitness, it's about diet and exercise, lifestyle, but also career goals, family goals, and trying to find that happy balance between them all. So for me, well-being is all-encompassing. It's about creating a life that enables us to feel content, healthy and happy in all aspects of life. To feel as if we're winning in everything that we do. And when I say winning, I mean achieving personal goals, meeting the goals that we set for ourselves, of defining our own strategy for success and winning. So yeah, so for me is all encompassing. It's about mental, physical, as well as potential. I use the words potential and spiritual interchangeably. For me, spiritual means potential. It means anything that's beyond the material, anything that I cannot see at present, but would like to achieve. That all falls into that potential spiritual realm for me. So yeah, so in terms of well-being, the aim is to take 20 minutes midweek where we share tips and tools for finding that personal balance, for finding that well-being for yourself. Now, for me, I suppose, explaining why I wanted to do this or why this is so important to me, and almost, I see Well-Being Wednesdays as something that I've been preparing for almost all my life. And I think it's great to explain why that is so and why I started this is for me to share my story. Now, well-being has been important to me all my life. I was the child that needed to understand why things worked, but specifically how the body worked, why and how things worked. And I was particularly interested in how the human body worked. What happens inside that enables us to do the things we do. The questions I asked as a child were more basic than that, but I suppose that was what I was getting through. How does it work? How does that happen? I suppose one of the questions I asked was, how does that happen? And I was fortunate, in that my grandmothers were constantly making up things, etc., for well-being. So not only was it important for me to understand how the body worked, but how we kept the body working. And I suppose I saw that as some of the things that my grandmothers did. So they were constantly cooking up broths and stews and soups for various ailments. You had a cold, there was a particular stew that was prepared. You had a cough, and there was tea or ginger with honey and turmeric. And I remember as a child, when you had measles or chickenpox, you had to bathe in turmeric water. Turmeric was added to the water, and you bathe in turmeric water. And then there was the slingerberry leaves. Now, I grew up in South Africa, so in South Africa they would make a pulp with these leaves that grow on a local tree, and that was applied to the skin to help soothe the skin, and it worked wonderfully when you had measles or chickenpox. This slingerberry leaves actually helped heal the skin. So I think all of that sort of made me wonder, or encouraged me to try and question, why did this work? Why did the slingerberry, which didn't look very pleasant, make my skin feel better? I was also quite fortunate in that one of my grandmothers not only cooked up broths and wonderful, delicious healing foods, she also cooked creams. When I say cook creams, literally in a pot on the stove, she cooked up creams that also included herbal ingredients. And that eventually led to me creating my skincare brand, Organica Boutique. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about that a little later. So I grew up, completely fascinated by the body and how it worked, and all these remedies that were being used, not just by my. As I got older, I realized that other people were doing amazing things as well to keep themselves healthy. And I would always ask questions, whenever I saw somebody doing something unusual, I'd ask questions about why and how and why was it working. But I suppose a big change or the focus in terms of well-being came when I was 13, and my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And then suddenly what became important for me was trying to understand how things went wrong, or what caused things to go wrong in the body, and then how we could, if possible, rectify it. And so from 13 onwards, I made it focusing on studying and trying to gather as much information as possible about, breast cancer and healing methods. And this, I was quite fortunate. It was the early 90s, and we suddenly had access to the World Wide Web. And I suddenly had access to databases, so I didn't have to go off to the library. So South Africans of above a particular age from Durban will remember Peace Centre and City Hall. That was initially the places where I went for information, but suddenly with the World Wide Web I had access to databases. And I remember sort of mid-90s finding an article that talked about parabens. Now, parabens were the preservative in most skincare products, and I found this article saying that parabens mimic estrogen in the body. This was a very early article. They were relating it to breast cancer, but there was no real hard evidence. And I remember at that stage thinking, well, my grandmother made these creams. If I was able to create creams that didn't have parabens, and now at that point, every skincare product contained parabens as a preservative. So that's when I started creating or trying to create a natural product that didn't have parabens, that was free of all the nasties. It suddenly opened up my world to all these chemicals that we were putting into our bodies. And while at that stage we were talking about healthy eating, etc., suddenly dawned on me is that everything we put onto our skin actually makes its way into our body too. So talking about using my grandmother's knowledge of making these creams, and then innovating to try and create a product that was completely free of all the nasties, that became a passion, and it's something I worked on in my late teenage years. Even to try and understand the skincare industry, worked with a skincare company, international skincare companies, etc., just to understand how this worked and what was happening. But throughout it all, the passion was understanding the body, understanding how it worked, and trying to figure out how I could improve function naturally, how I could improve the body naturally. So I followed quite an unusual career path. I call it a path of life, or my dad calls it a path of lifelong learning, because I have moved constantly in my academic career from science to alternative and traditional practices, back to science. And for me, that was quite important. For me, science is about keeping an open mind, about looking, observing, testing empirically. So my career moved from science to alternative and complementary therapies, and I was constantly looking for ways to test these alternative therapies. I was also the person, because I was so focused on finding anything that worked, anything new or different. From my late teens, when I started traveling, solo travel, it became an obsession to go out and track down people that were amazing healers or had done something wonderful in terms of well-being or health. And so if anybody told me about a practitioner or a therapist, no matter where they were in the world, who did something or cured something or healed something, I would not just believe blindly. I made it my duty and search and seek that person A, so I could learn from them, but B, to actually understand how they worked. And then as my career developed, what I would do is then research what they were doing. And so, yeah, so over the last 25 years, I've done my own personal research in mainstream science as well, various complementary therapies. I've also met with amazing practitioners from across the globe, and be they conventional medical doctors who take on a more holistic way of healing or holistic way of treating their patients, or whether it was conventional or complementary practitioners, traditional practitioners, basically, be they medical doctor, Sangoma, Inyanga, shaman, Veda, medicine man, and it didn't matter whether they were from the mountains of Peru or from the Amazon or Aborigine or Africa. It was just if they were doing something that sounded amazing and interesting and seemed to work, then I wanted to meet with them and learn with them. And what has happened over these 25 years is I've learned so much in terms of well-being, personal well-being, as well as tools to share with my clients. Now, in terms, I very often get asked, what do you do? What's your job? So, I fill 4 roles. The main one is research and innovation. So I work in research. I test a whole variety, or research a whole variety of practices that impact the body, specifically the autonomic nervous system. And based on my research, I develop technologies, or work with a team to develop technologies to improve human well-being. So whether there are skincare products that improve skin function, devices that improve perception, or breathing, ventilation. That's one part of what I do. So I'm constantly involved in research projects and development of technology. The second thing I do is various entrepreneurial initiatives. So a few of the technologies that I've developed, I've actually brought to market. For me, in terms of what I try to do, and entrepreneurship, it's about growing sustainable communities. So if there's a product or a technology that I develop that has the ability to support rural communities who are committed to a green way of life, then what I try to do is bring those products to market and create an entire sustainable structure so that the business is sustainable, but in the business being sustainable and profitable, we're able to sustain an entire community and create a product that's really, really beneficial for anybody who uses it. And the bit that I do is I have a healthcare practice, consult with clients. Many of you may have met me via that route. And in terms of consulting, I see myself as a catalyst for change. In terms of healthcare and well-being, I do not think I have the ability to heal anybody. I believe that everyone do not have the ability to heal. I believe that every person's body heals itself. Hence, I wrote a book, The Body Heals Itself, because our bodies have this innate ability to heal. We all think, wow, spontaneous healing, isn't that amazing? Well, in all honesty, we're all already healing spontaneously. Our bodies heal spontaneously. So what I see as my role in a wellbeing practitioner is giving people tools and tips to actually help their bodies heal. And also as part of that is helping them understand what prevents the body from healing. So getting rid of what prevents the body from healing, and finding the tips and tools that encourages the body to heal. So as a well-being practitioner, that's how I operate. But also as a well-being practitioner for the last 22 years, I've been leading well-being weekends and retreats across the globe. And as part of that program, we take participants across the globe and show them a way of help them overcome whatever they're experiencing by understanding a new way of being. Now, in terms of how I work, it can seem quite unconventional. For example, currently I'm leading a well-being week in Rome, and this particular well-being week focuses on healing diabetes naturally. So, seems strange, well-being week in Rome, healing diabetes naturally. When we think about Rome, we think about pasta, pizza, and gelato. So you don't think, oh well, that's where I'll go to actually heal diabetes naturally. But when you're leading a retreat where you're helping participants understand how to overcome cravings and find a healthy lifestyle, then I believe that you need to be in a city where you're actively, or you have temptation on every corner. So it's unconventional, my well-being retreats, but that's why I'm always traveling, because I'm always leading these retreats. And the last thing I do is teach yoga. Now, yoga's been a part of my life from childhood, and I'm fortunate that my research work and yoga interacted about 10 years ago, and now I get to research various aspects of yoga and then create programs, yoga-based programs using the neuroscience. So the 4 ways that I work. Now, in terms of this Wellbeing Wednesdays, what I plan to do is bring through to you all the tips that I've learned in terms of my work over the last 25 years, but also to introduce you to various practitioners, well-being practitioners who I've met, who've inspired me, who've become my teachers, and to introduce you to these practitioners who will share their tips. So what you can expect from future well-being webinars is interviews with practitioners where they can talk through their therapies, share tips, and these will be conventional medical doctors who take on a more holistic approach, to shamans, inyangas, medicine men, as well as fitness trainers. Very interestingly, I met amazingly interesting person yesterday. He's a tarot card reader, palmist, but when we got into conversation, what he actually explained to me was that he comes from an ancient line of witches, and it was really interesting. For me, the interesting bit was how he observed people and what he could tell from observing people. He was quite honest. The cards and the tools and what he reads on the palm actually just helps him find the language to express what he intuitively understands from observing a person. So for me, just understanding how his mind works, etc., was fascinating. And so these are the type of people that I'd like to bring to you, so you can understand how to notice these things about yourself. So yes, future well-being Wednesdays. Our 20 minutes are up. We're actually gone to about 25 minutes now. So future well-being Wednesdays, we'll be introducing a variety of guests. I'm also going to have my sister Savarna involved, and she'll be moderating, as well as a few other very science-based friends who would be sharing their point of view. So what you can expect is interviews with a variety of practitioners, as well as focused topics on various issues where we'll bring in a variety of viewpoints. So I'm excited. Next week we have a program focused on women's health. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's also World Menopause Month. So next week we have a few practitioners who will be sharing their tips on well-being, hormonal health, and specifically menopause. So I hope you join me in future programs. I do apologize for this. There's so much to say, there's so much to share, and it's going to be a challenge getting it all in 20 minutes. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next week.